I've been thinking, seriously, I've been thinking, and most times I really worry about the way most of us are, especially as it has to do with the way we treat ourselves as people and deal with one another. Daily, I see and experience all kinds of cruelty and injustice. Every day, you witness the oppression, insolence, hate, abuse, mistreatment, insensitivity, extortion, exploitation, greed, and pure wickedness by ironically or people most obsessed and fanatical with religion and activities of faith. Many of us today pray for change, advocate change, and clamor for change. We truly want to see change, but sadly, we ourselves don't want to change. We want to remain the way we are, but long to see a change in our society and environment. With every new law and policy, our first inclination as people is not obedience, but on circumventing and bending the new law. We want to jump queues, break traffic rules, disobey law enforcement officials, operate without licenses and particulars, invent noble sharp practices, and evade taxes. Most of us just want to take advantage, cheat the state, steal from our commonwealth, and use others. We care less if millions are dying of hunger, as long as we and our families are happy and satisfied. I've wondered what could be responsible for these prevalent main ways of dealing amongst us, especially as Nigerians. Everywhere you go, the story is not different. Many people are mean, aggressive, uncaring, self-centered, unfair, evil, and wicked to others. Envy, strife, vain competition, vainglory, and self-aggrandizement are what most of us crave after. After careful observation and study, I began to understand the likely reason for these behaviors, mindsets, and attitudes, and particularly among middle-aged and younger Nigerians. I reminisced about our upbringing. If you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50 years of age, you may be able to identify and share my sentiments in this submission. These age brackets today make up our most powerful and best position relevant individuals managing people, institutions, sectors, and even the public, and it's quite likely their manner and method of dealings may be cascaded, permitting even the younger generation, and as it were, not too educated caliber of this age profile. You see, the way a child is raised, the handling by parents, teachers, and caregivers can go a long way in shaping the mindset of that child and how he behaves as he grows up. Many times we wonder and worry about the way we are without really thinking much about how we were raised. Many of us today are just acting and behaving based on how we were raised. It's what we are taught and how we are groomed that we are expressing and passing on to the younger generation. So I guess this is where it all started. Casting my mind back to those years in secondary boarding school, I see myself barely 11 years old, excited and glad. I'm now a bigger boy, primary school all over, now in secondary school. From one, I'm glad and excited as I prepare to leave home and live in school in the hostel with other students in boarding school. I'm no longer a pupil, I'm now a student. My dad, excited his son is going to the boarding house. My mom, pleased and can't wait to tell every neighbor and friend her son is off to a boarding secondary school. Then the spending begins. School uniform, houseware, Sunday wear, socks, sandals, all in pairs, books, then provisions, peak milk, carnation milk, Ovaltine, Vitalo, Nasco cornflakes, Gary, sugar, planter and cabin biscuits, then buckets, hose and cutlass, bowls and bed sheets, blankets, cutleries, toiletries, Joy soap, custom imperial leather, pocket money, and your metal box. Smart choice for a Form 1 student with padlocks, and then you begin to write your name on every item. A good feeling, an exciting feeling, off to a boarding secondary school. Then at last I show up in the boarding secondary school. I see my contemporaries with their parents too, carrying boxes, traveling bags, buckets, brooms, and the search begins by the security and hall masters for contraband and all that. While you're at it, you can't but notice older students looking mean, tough, mischievous, rugged, rough, and weather-beaten. Then your parents leave you and you are released into a different world from the familiar. A hard, tough world of gross abuse, intimidation, oppression, bullying, terrorization, extortion, and survival of the fittest. And the authorities, teachers, principals, and even many parents loving it, approving it, and interpreting psychological, emotional, and moral damage of a young child and teenager. Good upbringing. They called it discipline. And for 5 years, for some 6 years, you are exposed to a life of physical, mental and emotional abuse. A fellow student just 1 year ahead of you called senior something can sometimes seize your food, your provision, your uniform, your money, beat you thoroughly and make you serve all kinds of punishment for virtually nothing or just for looking at him funny. And the authorities called it discipline. A Form 2 student can ask a Form 1 student to use a teaspoon to fetch water and fill up a bucket because he wouldn't share his provisions. A Form 4 student or a prefect, power drunk, can use all kinds of wires, belts, sticks, cables, and at times the flat side of a cutlass to beat a junior student for not fetching his water or washing his uniform on time. It was also called discipline. Within the system and environment of learning and education called a boarding secondary school, where students ought to be taught how to be civil, how to love, how to care, respect others, care for others, work together, protect and preserve the esteem, dignity and confidence of one another. The opposite was prevalent and widely approved by all stakeholders. They called it discipline. In boarding secondary school, your esteem and confidence are replaced with fear and low self-esteem. Generosity and selflessness are traded for extortion and greed. Teamwork and team spirit is traded for segregation and discrimination and treachery. A mindset of the commonwealth and common good traded for greed and self-centeredness. If you go late to a dining hall, your food is stolen or seized by a senior and you can't do or say anything, and it's also called discipline. Respect for others is traded for abuse of power. A Form 4 student can just wake up and decide to punish all Form 2 students for hours, asking them to pick pin in the sun for hours. Offense, they are growing wings. Fairness and justice traded for victimization and threats. Oppression, abuse, fear, harassment, cheating, greed, wickedness were the norms, approved, sanctioned, and encouraged by the authorities. They called it discipline. I keep wondering if wickedness and discipline are actually synonyms. When you think of those secondary school days, no justice, no protection, no safety, you learn to survive somehow, some way, and somewhere in your mind. You begin to think when you become a senior or a prefect, you will as well do your own. All these aren't just peculiar to a boarding school. Similar happening also applies to day schools. I believe if you're a day school student, you can also resonate with all the wickedness of the boarding house I just shared. See, the result is this. Those of us who went through this kind of life and treatment as teenagers have been permanently wired to think that's the way life is. If we will carefully observe the way most of us today behave, it is very similar to how we were trained and raised as teenagers back in the days in boarding or day secondary school. Hence, many of us are sincerely mean, wicked, oppressive, selfish, and greedy. That's what we know. That's how we were raised and developed by those that raised us. Little wonder why till today police brutality can seem to be abated. Cruelty, wickedness, greed, oppression in the governing bodies of these countries seem very far from coming to an end. And this has cascaded into banditry, terrorism, armed robbery, drug barons, Yahoo online fraudsters, prostitution, and all forms of wickedness and atrocities has enveloped this nation, all in the bid to acquire ill-gotten money to either oppress, impress, intimidate, or bully anyone that can be bullied. You wonder why many at the top find it very difficult to leave those at the bottom, even if they can do it, all in the bid to perpetuate their power of oppression and intimidation. Show off seems to be the order of the day. With any given power or position someone has, he or she uses it to oppress, intimidate, wants everyone to come bowing down to worship them. Alas, all this seem not to be coming to an end anytime soon, as such a mindset has been deeply ingrained in the mindset of the generation and may even be passed down to the next generation. And one of the reasons is because it has been exploited and is being used as a weapon to gain public appraisal. Just splash some money or power and you see people rushing down to do all your evil biddings, even if it is to take lives of others. Even as custodians of religion and faith, we are more about what we can take from the religious faithfuls, not what we can give to these innocent worshippers. I think many prayers need not to be offered to God if many so-called men of God will just put their hands in their pockets and touch treasury and give to assist their members. See everybody, what we really need to know is this. We left secondary school many decades ago. It's unfortunate we had to go through all that. I submit we were taught wrong. Please let's forgive and unlearn these vices. We need a better society for our sake and the sake of our children. Let us retrain our minds to do what is right and promote what is right. We live and work in civil society now, where rights should be upheld and respected with dignity, and respect for all should be a watchword. That British secondary school training, in my opinion, damaged most of us seriously. The answers to a better society lie with us becoming better people. If we as a people constitute and make up our communities and societies, it means real good change can only come with us as individuals changing individually. If we change as individuals, then inevitably we'll experience collective change and transformation. Let's work on our education system, work on our minds, work on our conscience, work on our society, and work on our country. And ultimately, the change we desire will truly manifest. Without doing that, true development will be far from us. Selah. If you enjoyed this particular video, kindly give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone, as sharing is caring, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't. My name is Benzik. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Cheers.